guys, it's Lauren
And Alex.
and today we are asking, is murder wrong for all people at all times in all places?
So our question for today is murder wrong for all people at all times at all places?
I think in the matter of self-defense, there are probably some gray areas, but I would say probably, yeah. Murder's pretty bad, so.
Is murder wrong for all people at all times in all places?
Yes. I think so. I mean, I can't think of a reason to justify it being right.
Okay, so our question today is murder wrong for all people at all times in all places?
I would say so, yeah.
Is murder wrong for all people at all times in all places?
Murder wrong for that's a tough one.
You can take How did you come to that conclusion?
How did I come to that conclusion? I mean, just from, I guess, the way I've been brought up, I just guess it's always felt wrong for it to be, like, I can't think of any reason why it would be right. I guess you could say war is a reason to justify it, but I don't think that's a good reason to justify anything. Yeah.
How do we know whether something is unjust or just? How do we distinguish between injustice and justice? Would you say that it's just arbitrary, or that there is some sort of standard that we all recognize that our laws are based off of?
Well, I think, there are standards in place. There's morals formed by our own opinions and religions and our backgrounds and stuff. But I think that there's always, there's a feeling of it. There's when something is wrong and when something is unjust, even if the rules are set against it at that point. I think it's something innate inside you when you know something is right or wrong.
Okay.
I think it's more of a unknown, like a unspoken thing that you don't have to necessarily set rules about. You know when something is immoral or not.
Okay.
So for another example, a less extreme, so let's say you had a laptop in your bag and I stole it from you. Would you say that's wrong?
Yes, I want my laptop.
Yeah. Why would you say it's wrong?
I mean, we kind of have to, follow these, laws, I guess, we put in place together to, not steal things, because we recognize that as bad to, I don't know, keep society together.
Yeah.
Because if we just stole everything from each other, then
Yeah.
it wouldn't work out too well.
Yeah. What if, a little less extreme example, what if I slapped you and took your book bag and ran off?
I chase after you.
Is it wrong?
For me to chase after you?
No, for me to do that to you.
Yeah, that'd be a pretty thing to do.
Yeah.
I honestly wouldn't appreciate it, but I'd catch you.
Yeah. Well, why? On what basis would you say that that's wrong?
Just because you had no reason to do it. So you're trying to get into the morality of situations, right? Yeah, because it's all perspective when you look at it, but
Yeah.
I mean, everyone kind of has a sense of what's right and what's wrong, and I feel like you would know that's the wrong thing to do.
Yeah. Where do you think that sense comes from?
It's from I've heard multiple things about this, but it's for when you're growing up, your parents will teach you right and wrong. I feel like everyone kind of has a sense of what to do and what not to do, just based on the way they were raised.
Yeah.
Where do you think these laws come from?
I guess you could talk about, social contract, I guess, that we have with each other to not do bad things and keep the world a sane place, I guess, really? Yeah.
So when we had slavery, a lot of people thought that was right. I would argue that I think that was wrong, and most people today would say that it's wrong. So how would you account for that if society creates morality and we think it's wrong, but they said it was right? How do we come to terms with that?
Yeah, I think that had a lot to do with just, everybody accepted it. So, everything, you felt the social pressure kind of to accept it. And kind of with, if you took it to, the Holocaust and things, the murders that were going on there where everybody thought was okay because either someone above them said it was right or their neighbors or peers said it was right to do. And I think a lot of people sometimes are pressured into feeling certain ways that they don't actually feel just to seem to fit in, kind of.
So if the majority of UNCW decided that murder was right, do you think that would change that murder's right?
No.
Right or wrong? Why?
False. I mean, I would hope that our culture has grown to what it could be today, that we would see that social pressure isn't like what's right and wrong. Like, we would be able to stand up against that.
But if society forms morality, then why shouldn't we conform to the pressure?
I mean, on the basis, like, at some point you have to go against the crowd kind of thing. Just like, I don't know, standing up to like peer pressure and stuff. You don't always want to go with what the crowd tells you to do, and that's, I don't know, several crimes I'm sure that have been committed because everybody else was doing it, just as we were talking about. But at some point you do have to go against what everybody else is saying to make the right choice, I guess.
A lot of the answers that we got today were talking about more cultural relativism. It changes based on the culture. A lot of people, instead of saying that it's innate, that we automatically know what's right or wrong, and that comes from a natural law that we try to abide by even though we continuously fail, they would say that it was societal pressure, and that's why we have that feeling of guilt, or that pang of knowing what is right or wrong. So instead of admitting that there's a natural law, there is that barrier of cultural relativism that we see at the university a ton, especially in our classrooms, that professors really pound that idea. So it's kind of breaking through that idea to get them to admit that that doesn't work logically, especially since we just used the example of murder, that is objective no matter what culture says. Murder is objectively wrong for all people at all times, at all places. Where do we get that? We don't get it from laws, because if a law changed today and said that murder is suddenly okay, it would not make murder okay. We have to get that from some higher source, like I was talking about that with that one girl about the founding fathers, how they said we have certain inalienable rights that cannot be given by the government. They need to be protected by the government, but they're not given from the government. They're given from the Creator, who has established a natural law which is based off of God. We believe the Creator is God. That is based off of his character. That's essentially what the natural law is. That's the argument that we were trying to get to today, but clearly we had that boundary, because first, before we get to God, we have to get them to acknowledge that there is an objective standard. And then we can get, once we recognize that, we can say, okay, well, can that objective standard exist without God? And that's where we get to the moral argument.